Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Mailers. I'm Paul Bobnak for Who's Mailing What, and today I'm talking with Jim Fitzgerald. He is the founder and CEO of Taradel LLC. Now, before we get started, if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to comment below. You can show your support for our channel by tapping the like button. And to get notified of when we add new videos, click on subscribe. Now let's meet the mailers. Hi, Jim. Thanks for coming in today.
Hey, Paul, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about start by talking about your background. How did you get involved with direct mail, and what prompted you to start the company?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I've been in print and graphic arts, my entire career, in mostly executive sales and marketing positions, and worked for companies like International Paper, but also for some fairly large commercial printers. And while I was there, towards the end of that tenure, we were doing a lot with FSIs. We worked with a lot of newspapers, for instance. And I had an idea to take that and democratize it somewhat so we could help daily newspapers deliver a local FSI for SMBs, for small businesses. And went off and did that. And it was successful, but the challenge was as newspaper circulations started to drop, we really needed to pivot. So we had a pretty sound infrastructure. We had a great network of print folks we worked with, but what we didn't have was volume. So really the best way to kind of circumvent that was to find another delivery vehicle, and that's how we kind of stumbled into direct mail.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an e-commerce ordering infrastructure built, and we kind of repurposed it. It took some work, as we know, because direct mail isn't as simple as flipping a switch. But we successfully navigated through that, and that's really how Taradel was born.
Oh, great. And so what does your day-to-day role involve?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I've got a great team. I started this out of a spare bedroom, and now we have 40 associates that do from an operational standpoint. We've got a great team. We've got a great development team, great sales team, great operations people. But where I spend most of my time is kind of trying to look around corners and try to get in front of what's happening. I spend a good part of my day listening to podcasts like this, reading, and really just trying to absorb what's going on in this crazy paced, big data, multi-channel world that we live in, and trying to figure out what are the best parts of that we can incorporate into our solution.
Right, and opportunities for your customers.
Correct.
Right. Well, we'll get into some more of that in a little bit. Getting more into what Taradel does. What type of direct marketing services do you offer to marketers?
Yeah, primarily, it's a great question. So we lead with direct mail, and we do quite a bit of it. Primarily, we offer a product called Every Door Direct Mail, and I'm sure a lot of the folks watching this are familiar with it. But for those who aren't, it's a service that the USPS launched about 10 years ago. And with Every Door Direct Mail, as long as you agree to mail to every address in a postal carrier route, there is no need to address the piece. So there's no data cost associated with it. Also, the USPS, because a lot of these pieces aren't really touching any USPS equipment, we literally ship the trays directly to the destination post office, and they're thrown on the back of the Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
There's reduced postage, so we can offer a turnkey solution that's a lot more competitive than traditional addressed mail. Mm-hmm. And that's really the genesis for a lot of our customer acquisition.
Okay. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, but in addition to that, we've made a platform. We've created a platform that makes it very easy to do that, because direct mail, as much as we'd like, can be a complicated challenging solution, particularly for SMBs. So with our platform, they can design and design a piece, target exactly where they want it to go. So with our solution, we take the every door direct mail concept and add value by giving the user the opportunity to select carrier routes that have the highest concentration of the demographics they're looking for. I'll give you a quick example. So if you're a landscaper, let's say, and maybe up until recently, you'd say, hey, I'm going to do a saturation mailing, which is what every door direct mail is at the end of the day, with a 2-mile radius around my location. And what we say is, why don't you do maybe a 5-minute drive time around your location, but let's focus on carrier routes that have a lot of the people you're trying to reach. Who are the people you're trying to reach? Well, the people that can afford my services typically have a household income above $100,000, and they're always homeowners. Okay, let's just take those two variables. Now we heat map their trade area, and we can see the carrier routes where bright red, let's say, has a 90% chance of those folks meeting those demographic criteria, and just a half a mile away, the carrier route there has 10%. Okay. So now we're just selecting the routes that are much more likely to drive customers for that SMB.
Gotcha. So, you've been working with lots of companies of different sizes, lots of small and medium businesses. And I noticed, like, on the website, a lot of what you do is like a really good consultative agency-like approach. What kinds of challenges do these, specific types of businesses face, and how do you help them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our customer base is really in two parts. We have strategic partners that where we white label our solution and offer a fully branded platform for them. And we have our direct customers. In every case, our strategic partners' customers are small businesses, and our direct customers are small businesses. And small businesses all have very similar challenges. They are cash strapped and time strapped. So they're not very often, they don't have a marketing team or a group of analysts. The analogy I try to build when I make a presentation about this is, you look at companies like Capital One and Progressive and American Express, and they've got an army of analysts and marketing folks and access to incredible data where they can segment and reach the right audience at the right time. And we try to democratize that. And to your point, use a consultative approach to really do, the term I use a lot is 80-20. Do the 20% of the things that are going to make 80% of the difference. We're not Madison Avenue.
No, right.
But we're going to do plenty with that 20% that's going to drive a significant difference in the outcome for that SMB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about EDDM then. Sure. How does it help businesses market themselves, especially with, if you're a small or medium business, you hear about postage rate increases all the time, and people just pushing digital all the time. How does that really help them then?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. One is, if I'm presenting to a group of small businesses, let's say there's 100 folks, and I say, raise your hand if you understand how direct mail works. Nearly every hand in the room will go up. And, they may say, well, you get a list and you need someone to design a postcard and there's postage, but, I understand how it works. And then I say, okay, keep your hand up if you can walk me through your digital retargeting strategy. 80% of the hands will go down, and that's important, and that's consistent, by the way, because I've seen it a number of times.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what we're doing, we're huge direct mail evangelists, and I'll get into that in a minute for many reasons. But what we're doing is we're using the targeting methodology that folks kind of intuitively understand. I want to reach homeowners above $100,000 with the presence of children, whatever it is. And we simply repurpose that. And now this is where we think of it as EDDM plus. We're taking that same methodology and now we're reaching that same audience with digital media. And to be able to do that with a mouse click is very powerful and very comforting to the SMB. Because now it's like they're putting their trust in our hands, but we have the data and the technology and the team to make sure that happens. So, and we've seen, pretty significant results with that. In fact, we provide a complete turnkey solution for Canada Post. They have a product called Snap Ad Mail in Canada. Okay. It's nearly identical to every door direct mail in the US. Mm-hmm. And Google approached them and they said, we think direct mail and display advertising are, like peas and carrots. Yeah, they would work really well together. So Canada Post said, great, if you want to work on that, let's get Taradel in the room. And the three companies got together and we put together a study where we took 10 SMBs, 10 small businesses, and we split their audience in half. Half of their audience got direct mail, and the other half of the audience got direct mail and display advertising targeted to the same households. Mm-hmm. On average, the folks the homes that did both showed a 35% lift. Mm. Wow. This works. Yeah. This works. So that's right. We're very much in favor of this whole multi-channel approach, using every door direct mail as the bridge to digital. Okay. And trying at the same time to understand, the concerns. A lot of SMBs like, hey, my brother-in-law did this EDDM thing and he liked it. I want to do the same thing. It's like, great, we're thrilled, but just hear us out and understand and try to understand why we want you to go multi-channel. Mm-hmm. So
are there specific tools that you have to help these customers, like a design tool, for instance? Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you asked. So yeah, that's been a game changer for us. Mm-hmm. We launched that service about 6 months ago. Prior to that, we gave folks a lot of images and don't really want to call them templates, but ideas of what a postcard could look like. Sure. And then we work with them to finish it well. Folks really have, they've come a long way in their understanding of how interfaces work. Because we've tried this several times, but this latest iteration has been wonderful. So that's huge. They can go online. And I think the most important part of this is that the template they start with, let's say if it's a dental office, for instance, mm-hmm. The template they start with is one that we know because we've probably done 1,000 dental campaigns. Right. Is going to, who's mailing what, right? This is the stuff we do. This is the stuff we do to help improve and add value to the service we provide. So they're starting from getting back to that 80-20 thing. They're starting mm-hmm. with the 20% that's going to make the difference, right? And then they simply populate it with their contact information, the specific offer they want to have, and off they go. So that's been a great ad and something that's provided substantial ROI to us as well. Awesome, that's great. Talking more about digital channels, then, what are some effective ways that direct mail can be integrated into a digital campaign? I'm thinking of the giants, Google, Facebook. Yeah, great question. So I think the one reason that we push direct mail as a part of this multi-channel approach is, and this isn't my study, this is just something I've absorbed over the years, and some people actually have a name for it. They call it the Bader-Meinhof effect. Yeah. Okay, so folks in direct mail should get this if they don't. So, if you look at direct mail, what is it about direct mail? Well, the word I use very often is it's invasive. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you like that word or not. It is. Somebody in the household has to touch that piece. And when they do, something very powerful happens. It's an impression. And the world now is the advertising world is nothing but impressions, right? Digital impressions, a direct mail impression is an expensive impression, but there's nothing more powerful. And getting back to the Bader-Meinhof effect, and for those who are listening and watching who haven't heard about that, think about the last time you bought a new car.
As soon as you pull out of the driveway of the dealership, what do you see? You see your car.
Yes. Right.
So it's really crazy how it works, but it does. So now that somebody's received that direct mail piece, that Facebook ad that's running, or that display ad when you're going to ESPN to see what's going on with your favorite sports team, is going to resonate at a much higher rate. It's that simple. The neuroscience behind it is solid. And in fact, Canada Post once again did a really good study on this. So yeah, so I'm a huge fan, but that's really how I think, direct mail is really the most important part of it, in my humble opinion. Of course, I've got a dog in the fight. I'm biased, but I really think it's effective and it works.
Yeah. Well, that's also the sort of like a pile-up effect of all these different impressions. And when you have so many digital impressions, that's great. But when you have a physical, tactile impression of a campaign that you guys do, it activates different, studies have shown this, many studies have shown this, it activates different areas of the brain for long-term recall of a message and things like that. And that's where it becomes really so powerful in creating impressions.
It is, yeah, and and our challenge as mailers is how do we communicate that? So and that's why I like the idea of taking the sum of the parts and saying to the client or the customer, we're going to deliver about 100,000 impressions. Don't worry about how they're distributed, but know an important part of the important segment of those impressions is going to be direct mail. And that's how we communicate it. And when you break it down on an impression, and this is a good takeaway, if you break it down on the impression level, suddenly that direct mail cost is absorbed across the very inexpensive digital impressions. And it just makes it that much more attractive. So.
Right, got it. Yeah, completely agree. So talking about like different industry verticals, and you guys work in a lot of different ones. Let's think about one, say, real estate. What are like some really good practices, best practices for real estate direct mail?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. We work with a number of lots and lots of independent realtors, but we also work with some of the associations like the New York State Association of Realtors, for instance.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. We built a site for them that enables, their members to access some pretty cool stuff. But best practices, I think we call it farming your local area, or some folks own your mile. Yeah, it's just a consistent delivery of why are you the most creditable? Why do you have authority in this area? Well, I'm consistently putting a message in front of you of just solds or just listed, and that rinse and repeat process is effective. And interestingly, because I've been through a couple of these now, well, probably more than a couple at my age, but there are cycles in real estate. We've all seen them. And the folks that never stop doing that are the ones that always survive.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like having the signs on the lawns.
Yeah.
It's a similar approach.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing, if they're really trying to, that's more of a branding exercise, but a branding exercise that a small business can do because the universe is pretty tight. But something more acquisition minded would be, the offer for a free valuation. If you're thinking about it. And this is where, again, segmentation could be important. I don't pretend to understand all the rules, but I think the average home stay is 6 or 7 years. So if you can target homeowners that have been in a house for maybe 5 years, that's probably a good time to start that sort of thing. So those are the ways that we help specifically, particularly in the real estate space.
So interesting. So talking about some of the things we've already talked about, why does direct mail still work so well today?
I'll quickly repeat some
in under an hour.
Yeah. I know. It's a powerful invasive medium. But I think more importantly, it's grown up quite a bit, and it's embraced the digital world. So it's just as, when presented properly, it's just as trackable, sometimes even more so, I would argue. If you have a unique phone number on the piece, a QR code, personalized URLs. There's so many ways to bring, direct mail into that measurable arena. And I do want to add too that in our solution, whenever anybody does a multi-channel campaign, we've built a proprietary dashboard where they can see in one screen how many phone calls they got from that postcard, how many Facebook ads were delivered, how many impressions, how many click-throughs, how many emails were sent, how many emails were opened, how many emails were, all that's in one place. And that's powerful, a powerful way to bring kind of direct mail into the same kind of digital consciousness.
Right.
And I think, getting back to your consultative point earlier, now our success managers can sit down consultatively and go over the results with the client, because there's nuance between every one of them, and say,
Sure.
hey, this is, what did we learn from the last campaign? It looks like from a straight click-through standpoint, maybe Facebook's a better fit for you. So let's double down on Facebook and lower the spend on display. Or conversely, it could be email outperformed. Who knows? We don't know until we do it. But every campaign should be the basis for a data collection process that can be leveraged for the next campaign.
Yeah, I think the tools that are available today for attribution are so impressive compared to what even was around just 5 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. And that's some of the stuff that, the typical SMB, just probably doesn't have time to embrace. And if we can fill those shoes for them as a trusted provider who's already developed a rapport with them, I think that's a difference maker.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about the future, what trends do you see unfolding in direct mail for the rest of this year, going into the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's I mean, with the incredible amount of data out there, even with some of the privacy laws and concerns that are coming down, the amount of data that can be collected is just going to make direct mail more targeted and more personal. There's an awful lot going on with intent data. There are a number of players out there, and we're just starting to get into this with direct mail retargeting. So if somebody visits your website, there are some great providers out there that partner with folks like us who enable us to do that. There's intent-based marketing, so folks that are out there searching for a product or service that you have, that now you can reach with direct mail or email campaign. Those things are really starting to heat up. The cooperative databases that are out there that are collecting and segmenting this data it's pretty remarkable, the computing power and the investment behind these things. But again, there are more and more players out there, which is good news for the advertiser, because it's starting to become democratized a bit. And I think it's my personal belief that all this stuff is wonderful, but this goes back to your question about what I do all day. And it's just trying to understand what's available, talking to the partners and the folks that are actually, the feet on the ground getting this done, and then figuring out a way to bring it into our solution without complicating what's already a pretty complicated process. Steve Jobs infamously said over and over again, it's really hard to make something simple. And that's our mantra, is what can we do to deliver an experience where somebody's at least interested enough to navigate through the website, which happens sometimes entirely on their own, but more often, probably 70% of the time, they want to talk to a human being. And when you look at let's say somebody with a top line of $700,000-800,000 a year, and they're about to literally open their wallet and spend $3,000, $5,000, you know, a significant portion of their annual revenue. They want to make sure what they're doing makes sense, and they want their hand held.
Right.
And hopefully we deliver on both counts.
Right. And that's why you're there. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So how can people find out more about Taradel for possible partnership, working on campaigns?
Sure. I would suggest if you're listening to this, you're probably a serious male person. I mean, M-A-I-L person. And I would encourage you to contact me directly. Jim is real simple, Jim@taradel.com. And if I can't help you, I'll get you through to somebody who's forgotten more about the subject than I know.
Awesome. Well, Jim, thank you again so much for being here today. Really, totally appreciate you. And thank all of you out there for joining us today on Meet the Mailers. If you have any questions for me or for my guest, please leave them in the box below. Show your support for the program by tapping the like button and click on subscribe to be notified of new videos when they're added to our channel. If you want to be highlighted in a future episode of Meet the Mailers, I'd love to hear from you. So my contact info can be found in the paragraph below by tapping on the Show More button. Thanks again for watching Meet the Mailers, and see you next time.